Hi, everyone. We are back, and today is our first panel of the conference, and the panel is called Money as Freedom, Building Sovereignty in a System Built to Keep Us Small. Thank you all for joining me today on the panel. We're going to go around, starting with Samina, and introduce ourselves.
Hi, everyone. I'm Samina Barry. I'm currently a strategic advisor to CEOs and boards within the biopharmaceutical industry, where I help them on corporate positioning and investor strategy. This is after 35 years in the biotech industry, where I worked on investor strategy and relations. And the last decade of my operational career consisted of my involvement in $40 billion worth of M&A transactions. So I've made a lot of men, a lot of money, and I have now turned that experience into wisdom that I now use to serve as a venture and a private investor, a limited partner in a women's fund called How Women Lead, where we support women founders. I'm on the executive board of How Women Lead, How Women Invest, which is a women's leadership and empowerment group. I'm an author, I'm a podcast host, and I'm a board member of other organizations. I'm happy to be with you today.
Thank you. Danielle.
Hi, I'm Danielle Fournier. I am the CEO and founder of Modern Shaman. I'm a spiritual coach and a medicine woman in a modern world. I'm a retired newspaper publisher. I was one of the youngest female publishers, one of the youngest publishers in Washington State. I have advanced degrees in Native environmental philosophy. I used to argue with the government for fun on the behalf of tribes around water rights. I have over 300 awards in publishing, and I have helped a lot of women create careers. This year, I crossed 7 figures in my business, and I am so proud to be here and talk about money as empowerment.
Silke.
Hi, I'm Silke Harvey. I'm the founder of Female Leaders Rising, which is a global movement that empowers women to make more money and then share their wisdom and pass it on to other women to empower the next generation of women to make more money. So we are aiming to create a whole new movement where we share the wealth on this planet equally around and make sure that women get a lot more of it than we are getting at the moment. And we are in the founding stage, and I'm really happy to be here and to be with all these other great women and to talk about the really important topic about how women can be empowered through financial freedom. I'm very happy to be here today.
Thank you. Holly.
Hi, I'm Holly Hayes. I'm founder of the Up Level Academy. So I'm kind of like a taxi driver. I pick people up and I take them where they want to go. I'm very honored to be here today. I actually set an intention in July of this year that I would be asked to speak on a panel of experts about money, investing, and creating wealth. And look how quickly I manifested that. I'm a little bit controversial, I'd like to say, because I've actually very recently consciously unsubscribed from the system. I actually currently have no money in the bank. I have chosen to invest my wealth into decentralized systems and exit the matrix. I also sold my home. I sold my home prior to COVID, actually. And I recently bought a trailer or a caravan, depending on where you're joining us from. And I plan to travel around Australia and stop trading time for money.
Fantastic. Thank you all for being here. This session is designed to spark transformation, truth-telling, and forward motion. So we are ready and so excited that you all are here. So be bold, be raw, and be real. Our first question: how do historical restrictions on women's financial power still shape our opportunities and conditioning today?
I can go. One of the things we have to realize is the historical architecture of society was created by men for men. And women's roles have always been delegated to homemaker. And when we pair the economical and business external environment with societal and cultural expectations of women to not participate in that level of decision making, that continues to fuel that. And until we can break the system, and maybe not break the system, but create a parallel system, we'll continue to be stuck in that. And what we see is even now, women do not talk openly in society about the investments they've made and stocks they've traded. That's just not a topic of conversation, whereas men can have it quite easily. And so we really do need to shift the expectations that culture and society have put on women and let them step into their power, because women right now, at least in the United States, control 1/3 of private wealth. So there is enormous power and potential that is waiting to be unlocked. We just have to have women recognize the power that they hold.
Yeah, I actually couldn't agree more with what you just said. And as women, we really have no financial literacy. So we are just taught to budget and save. And then we have this deep conditioning that is generational. We inherit it from our ancestors. And it basically is we constantly ask ourselves, can I afford this? And we, of course, as women, want to put our family first and our children first, but we think that it has to be one or the other. We don't come from this abundant mindset that we can actually have it all.
Well, and I would like to weigh in, being from two different backgrounds. I'm a tribal woman who grew up in Western culture. So I grew up with women who ran households, but from a more masculine energy, right? And so I think for me, becoming the first woman publisher in my third generation family, I had some of those tools. Some of the things that help women make money are unbecoming to a lady. Being forward, being confident, talking about money publicly. And we're so conditioned that we don't see how those things affect us, right? So we're not necessarily, sales can be really hard for women. And that is how you make money in a business. Sales as service, not the type of sales where we think of sales in that men's role, that very masculine thing. How do you learn it? While at the same time, men had the advantage of having us do this part in traditional relationships, do all that caregiving for the family while they were free to go pursue that breadwinning. And now as CEOs and entrepreneurs, we're still doing it all.
Yeah. And I would like to add about the practical side of this question, because up until the early 20th century, many countries in this world actually forbid women to have bank accounts. Women could not actually own their own bank accounts. And in some countries that carried on until after the Second World War, actually, as recently as that. And myself, I have lived in several countries in Europe, and I have come across restrictions that are continuing to this day. For example, when I was a young girl, I was 19, I went to Spain, and I spent a season there doing seasonal work, and I was not allowed to sign a contract without my father, my husband, or a brother signing for me. I was not allowed to even get my own money. My father had to collect my wages for me every month. So that's the first time I ever experienced that level of, financial restriction on women. Then, even in the UK, where I lived for over 30 years, everything seemed fine until the day my husband left me. And the bank turned around and said, because my husband is left as a single woman, I could not have a mortgage, and they would actually rescind the mortgage on the property because I'm a single woman now. And many people don't know that, but it still exists to this day, this prejudice. Also, I found out from my financial advisors that women in the UK have about 5 to 6 times less success in obtaining a mortgage when they're single than when they're married, because a husband is always expected to sign with you, co-signing. And even now in Bulgaria, where I live, there is a rule that anything you have bought as a marital asset whilst you are married to your husband, even if it's your own thing that you bought from your own money, you are not allowed to sell without his permission.
Wow.
Mm.
Which brings us to the next question. What does financial sovereignty mean to you personally? And how has that definition evolved through your journey?
I'd love that. Yeah, I have to say that I was not a person that was expected to succeed, and it was something I chose for myself. I grew up in a wealthy family, and people think, oh, that might have been easy. It wasn't. It wasn't, because I was told from the very much groomed from a very young age, your job is to go out and like make like Bridgerton some kind of great match, right? And for me, I don't know where I would be if I hadn't decided to make my own money, because I am a wild person and I've done far more as an entrepreneur to change the world and help other people. And partly because of all the things that go into making money. It's not just the transactional part that people won't talk about. It's the personal growth. It's about the service. Most women, I find when I talk to, especially entrepreneurs, there's a part of service in their work where they want to include everybody. And that's how we change the world. And I think as we each individually do it, we bring everybody with us.
Yeah, absolutely. I could not agree more. And I grew up in very similar circumstances where what was expected of me was to get a great education so I would be a good match. And I had no financial literacy. I'm first generation. And I remember just thinking I needed to do it myself. And so I did. And I picked up what we had here, and I don't even know if they publish it still, but it used to be called Kiplinger's Personal Finance. And I
Yes.
self-taught. And I figured out how much to put into a 401k. I figured out all of the ways to do it. And I subscribed to it probably for, a good 15, 20 years. I engaged my own financial advisor, and I set goals for myself, but no one told me that. I just did this for myself. And as a result, even into marriage, I was the main breadwinner by several fold. So I was always in charge. My husband completely trusted that. And so I did all the investments and rebalancing because simply, I just got better at it than he did, even though that's where he had trained. He trusted my instinct. But it is, making those decisions, the best interest of you, your family, and in a way that aligns with your values, I think is so very important. And that's why I do the work I do today with How Women Invest, because I'm deeply committed to supporting female founders, because women drive stronger business results more so than men. So there, our data around how much more lucrative and profitable women run businesses can be. But I also feel like I'd like to bring others with me. And so I also do series of discussions throughout the United States to bring women and wealth together into a subject that people can shed their discomfort, that they might not know anything, and really educate women and, kind of help allow them to step into their power.
Great.
Yeah. So,
Go ahead,
just
Holly.
yeah. Sorry, I just had something to say on the sovereignty piece. So, what that means to me is complete time freedom. Because if we look at what the average American or the average Australian does every day, we wake up, we go to work for 8 hours, we're trading our time for money that then sits in the bank and actually melts away. Because look at what is happening to our economies with inflation. And so I unsubscribed from being a time trader. And freedom to me is having that time. So I am putting my money to work now. As I said, I've recently moved my money out of the bank, taken back my sovereignty, moved it into a decentralized system, putting my money to work where it works for me. Well, I can be a mother because I'm never going to get that time back while my son is so young. So, you know, I just invite people to, you know, have a little think about, you know, what's more important, because we can hustle and we can slog it out. And I've seen this happen, and I've seen people build massive amounts of wealth and empires and businesses. And then what? You get to an age when you retire and you have a couple of good years, and then people are getting sick. People are dying. They're not even getting to enjoy their retirement. I've seen that firsthand in my family. And yeah, so I just invite people to have a think about, you know, trading time for money, and maybe getting a little bit creative as to how you can put your money to work for you.
Good idea. Where do guilt and fear around earning, spending, and desiring wealth originate? And how can we begin to unlearn that?
I think it all starts really from our upbringing, because a lot of our beliefs come from the way we are brought up. I know it myself. I come from a working class family, and we had the typical thing going, you know, money is evil, people with money are evil, working class people will never amount to anything, don't trust the rich, you know, the full works. You know, it all went on in my family. Especially my mother was very, very suspicious of anybody who had more than a paycheck to their name. And I think we really have to start at that root level, because this conditioning goes on a lot in the world to this day. And it's very, very hard once we become adult to actually shake out of that belief. So we have to do a lot of inner work. Well, I had to do a lot of inner work just to get to the level to say that I am an entrepreneur, because before you can even start your own business, there are all these things going on in the mind. You're not good enough. You don't have the qualifications. You don't have the certificates. You've not been to uni, girl. Who do you think you are? Or all this goes on in the mind because it's been put there right from a very early age. And I think it's very important that women today learn how to unravel all those inner blockages, you know, how to do the inner work, how to do the shadow work. And there's a lot of help out there, thank goodness, on the internet, and there are coaches now. So I think that's one of the most important things for women nowadays, to do the inner work to shake off that old paradigm. I mean, it's so 20th century, to be honest.
I couldn't agree more with what you just said. And where does that conditioning come from, besides in the home, which I grew up very similar, working class family? Those beliefs are just passed down generation to generation, and you just absorb them whether you like it or not. But where does that actually come from? Let's ask the bigger question, and it's the system. The system is designed to keep us entrapped. You are celebrated for staying broke, and you are shamed for wanting more. So again, as women, I said this earlier, but we are told put the family first, and that creates scarcity, because anything that we want for ourselves to make ourselves better, or to even get educated, which is what we're talking about here. Thank God for the internet. We can get all of these free resources and start to work on these inner beliefs and break down those beliefs. But we're really got to step out of that scarcity mindset. It keeps us entrapped.
I think it's really important to when we talk about where does some of this thinking come from, the roots really are, and I think this is a great parallel to now as a historian, that after the Black Death, there was an enlightenment and a search for knowledge. And as we tried to move away from nature, women became nature. Nature became nature. And it was taking religious principles. And I love a good church. I had a great church experience, but we have to realize we're living out some very, very old teaching where women are still supposed to be good. And that is where we're not supposed to want too much. And we love to take down women that are flashy. Like, you have to be good, but like, look at our rock stars. That's a great way of, we're like, oh, she's bad, she's good, she's this. You know, if it was a guy, we're like, well, you know.
Yeah, I agree. I think it does go back to around the time when you said, because I truly believe that women to this day still carry an ancestral wound from the burning times. Because we were persecuted for wanting money. We were persecuted for wanting more for ourselves.
Or being successful, right? Even if we were successful. Or leaders.
Or have knowledge. Have knowledge, have wisdom.
Knowledge, yes. Absolutely. Can women truly be liberated with capitalism? Or do we need to reimagine the system entirely? I believe we need to reimagine many systems entirely. I am, in my world, I think that there are most of the systems now that are in place, whether it's banking and finance or health or, any of the things that are right now being talked about were built for men by men and benefit men only. Right. So, I don't know, was it Samina, were you and I talking about this earlier?
Yes.
About sort of reimagining the systems and creating systems for women by women that match our energy, that align with who we are and what we do and how we do it, and not fighting the system, but kind of going over here and doing our own thing, and creating these systems where we just sort of, like Holly said, get out of the matrix. We're just getting out and we're creating and operating on our own without permission. We're building things that are new, that work for us, and that we just don't participate anymore.
This was what we talked about earlier. It's just not working for us. And I think it's very frustrating to bang our head and say, why can't we make this traction? We're never going to make that traction because we're talking about centuries worth of institutionalism. And so what we were talking about was in venture capital. There are so many studies, and this is what I speak about, that only 2% of all venture funding in the United States goes to women-founded companies. And that's ridiculous because there are so many amazing companies founded by women. But there's systemic bias in the fundraising process, and it is all very well documented. So, part of a movement that I'm involved in is Women in Venture. So we are creating our own venture ecosystem in the United States. We have a number of wonderful women-led funds, and we're creating our own funnel of economic prosperity with our money that we've worked so hard for. We are taking control of that. We are using it to invest in other women who are coming up with great businesses, because until we invest in the businesses we want to see for tomorrow, we're not going to change that. And the way to do that is continuing to invest in more women, invest in creating a new system. And that's what, I love being a part of, because we're helping to uplift women who are bold, innovative, creative founders, and putting our money to work in businesses that are already backed by data and facts for their success. And we don't have to worry about that 2% number anymore, because we're just going to create our own ecosystem.
Right.
I think the thing about capitalism that's really important to understand is historically it has been about power differential and exploiting that power differential. Mm-hmm. And we've seen how that's grown so grossly and has been historically for a very long time out of proportion, and it's not sustainable. And we're very aware with the conversations we're having about, what is power? And let's face it, money, I also think the lack of debt, not being highly leveraged, is power. There's freedom I've been incredibly broke, and there were some times I'm like, well, at least there's nothing to pay for, right? That's not the difference in property, but that is, my friends who are river rats will tell you the same thing. It's like, look, it's a very simple life where fulfillment doesn't come from consumerism. So we have to look to systems where people, I think, are happy first. And what are your community responsibilities? I was thinking about the potlatch up here in the Northwest. The wealthiest people take everything at Makahiki, right? Like this time of year, and disperse, because the strongest will again accumulate and provide as a group. That's a different way of starting to thinking about wealth amass and resources. How we look at that, we have to deconstruct from a very deep level, not just moving money, which is a little bit in the stage we're in of like, let's just get what they've got. We have to have a better system that really supports community and what I think women care about, which is connection in our families.
Absolutely. I think women look at their abundance very differently. There already is an element of us wanting to pay it forward and wanting to do good with it. So we can do good and we can do well at the same time. And I think what's really very striking is in the United States today, women control 1/3 of the private wealth in the United States. So we are currently in charge of $34 trillion. And by 2048, which is considered the great wealth transfer, women in the US will be set to inherit 124 trillion. So that'll be 2/3 of the private wealth. Now, if we look at that as wealth equals power, well, we also have a responsibility to do good with it too. And we have to equip women to understand the great responsibility that comes with that amount of power and that you can unlock in yourself, and the good you can do for society, building businesses and supporting communities. And that's where we do need more of an education, because women, again, historically haven't been taught how to handle money. There is a fear or shame or discomfort around it. So I think there's an enormous opportunity that needs to be unlocked over the next several years, where we help more and more women understand how to manage their money, how to use it to, not just advance, but to create long-lasting systems into the future for tomorrow, for their children, for legacy, for other generations to come.
That's such a great point, because as we push more women into STEM, we're not pushing more women into learning about finances or
Right.
finance, going into finance. All the boys I know are like, oh yeah, finance, I'm going to do quant, like,
Yeah.
I don't hear very many women, but I know an amazing stockbroker. I was like, oh, that's an interesting job.
Yeah. And I agree with you, Danielle. Like, I was in STEM. I was in STEM very early. There weren't any other women at the time that, I was around, and I didn't know any women in finance. None. And still very few that are saying, yeah, when I grow up, I want to be, a trader, or I want to be in finance, or I want to, that's just not something that we taught, or we teach our girls. And so I think it needs to start really young. I think we need to start with, saving, and like, what does that look like? What does spending, what does budgeting look like? One of the things my kids learned in school, and they went to a Montessori school, was how to make change. Just easy things with money, how to make change, how to budget, how to, how to say, okay, this is how much money I have, this is how much I can spend. Here's a list of things that I can spend my money on. What does that look like? Just simple little, what do you call it? Like, tasks and normal things that we do with money on a daily basis, and we never even learned that, right? It was kind of like, especially depending on how you grew up. I grew up really poor, and it was like, if you did get money, it was almost like, oh, what can we buy now? That was the idea in our family. You got a little extra money. Okay, we're gonna go out for pizza. We're gonna do something amazing. Something fun that we wouldn't normally do. Instead of saying, you know what, we're fine. Let's put it away. Let's sock it away in case we need something later. No, it was just this idea that, oh, we've got it. We've got to figure out how to do something that other people get to do. Was so special. It was never anything amazing, but starting really young and teaching our girls, right? I think that's really, really important. So let's talk about invisible ceilings or cultural narratives that keep women from scaling wealth or power. And invisible ceilings is like the whole glass ceiling, glass staircase talk, it just drives me absolutely insane. But let's talk about this.
So the first thing I'd like to address is that success, it's the idea that success has to look like burnout and sacrifice. The belief that you can't be a good mum and make millions at the same time.
Yeah.
That we're lucky as women if someone pays us what we're worth.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah. You're lucky yeah, it's so true. It's so true. And still, are we paid what we're worth?
Do we
No,
ask
I-
for it? Do we ask
Yeah.
for it though, Lisa? Women don't always ask for it, men do.
Yeah. I put up a post today that was advertising this. It says, am I okay charging this? It says no man ever. Women have pricing freak out like I've never seen it. And, you know, cause I do business coaching, and it's because what are they going to think of me? And part of it is we have to stop taking down our own when they're successful, of like, and partly because how maybe they live with that, right? I don't know. Like, I don't know that I have the answers to that question, but we have to be thoughtful about and what success looks like. I would say half of my clients, or a third of my clients, success for them is not having to work. What is work? What is work? Because they're artists, they want to create, and they don't want financial. They're 8 hours of a day to be created to just survival. I don't think anybody does. But for some people, that's not what they're here for. They need to be well funded. We're not told that's a great thing, though, to even want. How dare you not want to work?
I think, you know, there's also a conversation that comes up every time I do one of my sessions. And, you know, I ask how many people here work with a financial planner, and many of them are married. So many women raise their hand. And then, you know, I ask, well, have you ever pulled money out and self-directed your own investments and kind of took the bull by the horns and had a conversation about, where is my money invested? What is it invested in? Are those funds aligned with my values or not? Or may I take money out? And I have to remind women that many of them are the primary breadwinners, but they don't make decisions about the money that they bring in. And so I think it's about that, you know, apologetic mindset that women have around money, that now that they're married, they have to share it. Now that they have it, they have to make every single little decision with them. But, you know, why can't you take out a little bit of money and do something that speaks to you, that you feel is the right thing to do? And, you know, many women also don't remember that, you know, when their financial advisor tells them, no, don't take this money out, well, they get paid on the assets under management. And so they're incented to have you not take money out. So it's providing, like, you know, women that permission not to have to apologize, permission to own the money and I recognize, to Holly's point, the value that they are worth, understanding their own worth, and trusting themselves to make some decisions on their own when they bring in a fair share of many household incomes.
Yeah. Well, also something that you said, which I think is so archaic, is that you have to put your money together, that you have to combine resources, right? When you get married, like you have to have a joint, all your money has to go in together. Like, are you insane? Like, why would you do that?
No, yeah, absolutely.
It is actively
Why would you do that
encouraged.
when the divorce rate is 1 in 3?
Right.
It is
So-
actually actively encouraged. Like I said earlier, that in the UK, it's extremely difficult for a woman to even get a mortgage if the husband isn't signing, and then you're expected to have a joint bank account that the mortgage gets paid out of. So the whole system is designed in such a way that it's encouraged to actually join your assets.
It's
And,
built to keep us down. It's built to
Yeah.
keep us without power. So, yeah.
And I think that goes back to, you know, financial literacy and understanding this in the beginning, so you're able to make the right decisions later in life. I didn't combine my finances because I understood enough. But if you don't, and if you are, you know, fall into the trap of, oh, this is what we do, that will happen if you don't understand what you're entitled to, what you're able to do.
Yeah.
And
Right.
again, I think it all goes back to understanding your financial value system as well as your own personal value.
Right.
But also,
And breaking
the-
those patriarchal and religious, traditions that are just handed down, and that you learn that you're supposed to do things this way. And that's not easy, but it's something that I think, because we're having these conversations, we're bringing awareness to where, it's okay to make and have your own money and your own investments and spend on what you want and all of those things. Like, you are your own person and you don't have to give everything away.
Well, and it brings up for me when I was talking about like, where is it rooted in that we take a spiritual ceremony, right? I mean, for most people, it's a spiritual ceremony. We don't gain a lot of times by marriage. Women do not gain in marriage, and it is a legal precedent. It's a binding. Why is it part of our law system when it's a spiritual thing? It's not. It's a transaction. And when we realize some of the roots that we have inform our expectations, they're so ingrained that, like, now we're together, now we're this is the thing, this is how we sell insurance, by the way, like, to think about why we're doing what we're doing then gives us other opportunities to choose differently, of like, why is it like this? And if you look towards same-sex couples, the conversations can be very different, which is great. And sometimes they're not at all. That's how far ingrained some of our traditions are in our traditions and institutionalized sexism, racism.
Yeah. Yep.
Can I just touch on 2 points that I think are just important when we're talking about cultural narratives and the scaling part too? And both of you mentioned these 2 words. So number 1 is savings. Lisa, you mentioned savings. Saving is not enough anymore. Saving gets us nowhere. Our money is sitting in the bank and it is being eaten away by inflation. And I think a lot of women need to hear this message, that working hard and just saving, that worked for our ancestors and the generations that came before us. That's not going to work for us anymore. So the second thing I wanted to touch on was investing. Do we as women understand the fundamentals of investing? Buying low, selling high, and accumulating early. Where do we go to learn this? And I think also to recognize that the greatest transfer of wealth is actually happening now right underneath our noses, and we are going into the digital world. So when I'm talking about decentralized systems, I just want to make it really clear just to our viewers that might be thinking, what are you talking about? I am talking about crypto. I've got very involved in crypto, and I know when I say it, there's going to be people going, oh, dirty word, dirty scam, all these things. And I just invite people to go and do some research, because I have made a lot of money. I've been able to 3 times my money, and now I'm scaling that, which was the question here about scaling. I'm actually scaling that, and I'm getting educated because I understand the fundamentals now. So if anyone wants to touch on more of that, I'd love to hear from you.
Oh, I love that. I have some crypto too in my very diversified portfolio. And that's exactly the point. When we think of men and how men accumulate their wealth, it's not by just throwing their money into a mutual fund and getting that pie chart that breaks down your risk tolerance and so much is in stocks, so much is in bonds. They don't do that.
Remembering the Fidelity 401k.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
It's an archaic tool. And yes, there is some level of, balance there, but the people make most of their money on investments, and men do that so frequently, and that's why they have those conversations. But that's also why I'm with the group that I'm with, because that's how we will start making money, when we start removing the shame from women to to welcome them, to talk about great deals, great investments, introduce them to founders, understand the fundamentals of a business, understand how to get into a fund, and take away also some of the fear of the unknown. When I say I'm a venture investor, people think you need $1 million as a base investment. You don't. And so it's those questions of fear and embarrassment that, oh, I don't know this, I can't possibly ask, that continues that cycle of not getting involved. But the more we can educate, the more we can create an understanding, the more empowerment and connections we can create, the stronger all women become. Because, to Holly's point, you have to look at other ways, because the old ways don't do it, and that's not how people become wealthy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. For women who feel trapped behind, feel like, oh, now you're talking about investments, you're talking about like, I don't even know anything about that. If they're behind in their knowledge or disempowered financially, what are some of the first practical steps to reclaim agency and build momentum?
I would say that every woman has something, every human being on this planet is gifted with something from the creator that they can sell right now with a phone and a PayPal link. That is and if you can figure out how to do that, everything else gets easier.
And there's so much education right now online on, for every step in the continuum, like for beginners and very topic driven. So, it's not, there shouldn't be any shame in I'm behind, but bite it off in small bites and build on it. And it doesn't have to be that I've got to do something. But doing anything is a step in the right direction.
Yeah, I wanted to say something similar actually, and it's not that you're behind at all. It's just take action now, but actually do something. And this is something that I thought about very recently. Is that we do have access to all these tools. We can have a look on Instagram, and we can buy these courses, or we can download an ebook or whatever and learn. But then we actually get stuck in the learning loop. So we just think, oh, I need the next book, or I need the next course, or I need to go to the next thing. When are you going to take action? And it's really facing that fear. Use your intuition. This has been the best thing for me. Really discerning if there's people are selling at us all day, every day. That's the reality. You're on social media, you are getting sold at. But you need to use your discernment and see if the opportunity is right for you. Not everything is a scam. It's our conditioning. If we think, oh God, this is, of course, there's no get rich quick. There isn't. But not everything is a scam. And when I do say the word crypto, people think that is a scam. And we are still very early. So people thinking that they are late, only something like 1.8% of the population actually hold crypto. So you're not late at all for that. There is still a lot of room to make money in that space. But really discern and feel into, does this feel right for me? But take action on something. Because if you just keep being a student of life, you will miss the boat.
And there's so many women's investment groups and other organizations, free organizations you can draw upon and have these conversations, so that you feel less alone and on your own in making decisions if you're fearful. And I think here's the wonderful thing that we didn't have when we were growing up. I certainly know I didn't. We didn't have women supporting women the way we do today. We didn't have the internet. We were not all connected. Did not have that generosity mindset. And I think, we are living in unprecedented times in so many different ways, but one of the most significant is that we are connected together and we are sharing for the first time. We don't see each other as competition. We see each other as companions and ways to build a better future.
Mm-hmm. That's amazing. How can we circulate and retain wealth within women-led ecosystems instead of feeding the patriarchal systems? And I know we touched on that a little bit before about building systems, but how do we keep the wealth within these ecosystems that we're creating?
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of funds that focus on female founders, and you have to have at least one female founder. And, it's a matter of reinvesting. And so, if you make some money, you keep some money, you give some money, and then you reinvest some of the money. So it's just a matter of creating a bit of a discipline and keeping that consistent, because you're right. We can't just make this money and then give it away, because that takes away our mission to drive a bigger, better, powerful system that creates some equity. But what I always like to use is the fact that women founders and CEOs tend to hire 6 times more women on their executive teams at equal pay. So that's also a reason to believe in why you should support women-led companies, because they are continuing to create the change we all want to see.
Mhm.
And again, many of the funds are very disciplined in the fact that you could only be women investing it, because we're placing our bets on sure bet winners based on the data, on the returns that women deliver over male-founded companies, and performance metrics are much stronger. So we don't want men to get into those funds. So these are exclusively women funds, and there are so many of them in the United States. There are a few hundred. Many years ago there were only 2 or 3, and now there are a few hundred. So look for those systems, look for those networks, look for those investing clubs, and make sure that they align with the ethos of supporting women, because that is how we will continue to propel the next generation forward.
Yeah, I'd like to just touch on that too, because when we move away from patriarchal systems and centralized systems, there actually is no middleman anymore. So you've got to realize that sometimes what you're investing in or where you're holding your money, there's still a CEO at the top that's getting really rich. So what about being in a system that is more fair? So I'm gonna mention this one now, and it's called a DAO. So that actually stands DAO. It actually stands for Decentralized Autonomous Organizations. And this is the way of the future, in my opinion, because there is no CEO at the top getting rich. It's community based, which is what we're talking about. We're all there to win. And when everyone wins, we all win. So this is the way forward. And there's so much education, and you get access to billionaires in here. You get access to millionaires. So if we are looking to, go into ecosystems where we can learn, we want it to be fair across the board. That's my opinion.
Absolutely. And there are donor advised funds that allow you to donate, and get a charitable contribution, but actually invest that money. And there are dedicated platforms for those funds, so that you can see the entire universe of funds and companies, and you can see what speaks to you, what looks like it would be appealing. And again, the point is it's accessible. And you can start small, but you can kind of feel comforted knowing that everything is fully vetted, so you're not making a risky financial bet with your eyes closed. You're looking at everything that's been vetted before.
Great advice. So how do we redefine success and enough in ways that honor rest, purpose, and liberation, which Holly has touched on, but not just accumulation, which is the patriarchal measurement of success, right? How do we redefine success enough in ways that honor rest, purpose, and liberation?
I think some conversations around contentment versus happiness, or what the markers, like for everybody to know what is enough, because the world will tell you what you should have, how big your house should be, what kind of car you should drive, where you should be living, the clothes you should be wearing, what you should be doing once you're successful, or what makes you successful. But if what makes you truly happy is being a kindergarten teacher, right? Knowing that and not letting anyone sway you off your purpose to give small people the opportunity for a beautiful life. It's not just financial, because we have seen and are seeing right now some of the wealthiest people in the planet are not happy.
Yeah. Actually, I wanted to touch on that because a thought popped into my mind as you were speaking, and we constantly move the markers, so it's always future based. And actually, this is something that I learnt from the Paris Hilton documentary, where she actually said in her documentary, she said, I always used to say, like, I'll be happy when I get to $100 million. And then she got to $100 million and she wasn't happy within herself. So then what's the next thing? I'll only be happy when I get $1 million. You constantly move the marker because you think that, that external amount, but you still feel different, which we touched on in the early beginning of this. It all comes from within, right? And it's breaking down those beliefs within. So one of the things I have done to redefine success, and I love what you said about, maybe if kindergarten teacher is your purpose, and for me, my purpose is to help women to step into their dream life. But what I'm doing in the background is actually using this technology as we move into the digital age, and I'm actually letting and allowing, and I've put my money into AI trade bots that actually do work for me while I rest. I go outside and play with my son. I don't have to look at charts all day. I don't have to be in front of my screen. And I can create that wealth while I'm not burning out. And I can, if I was a kindergarten teacher, I could be doing that while my money's still working for me in the background, and I get to play with the kids all day. That would be great.
Yeah, I think it's understanding what brings you joy. What do you want to do? And I think we need to again redefine what success looks like, because I always like to say, do what you love, success will follow. Success isn't tied to a dollar figure. It's tied to the contentment you receive. It's that you're able to sleep at night, that you're not stressed, that you're not traveling, that you're spending quality time with your family, that you're able to travel. I think materialistic things do not bring happiness. I mean, there's that saying, money doesn't buy happiness, and that's exactly it. Just like no one externally, if you're an unhappy person, you can't expect being in a new relationship to suddenly make you happy. That has to come from within, as does your definition of success for you.
Yeah, isn't there a statistic that says money only buys happiness to $85,000 a year?
And they just updated that too today. I saw that, and they said, "Oh, that's not the case," because it's not the case.
Well, in terms of it, once we're really fed and not stressed, and that's where I think true freedom, like the internal freedom, comes from. I have choices. And I think it's so important that we're encouraged to, whatever level we want to pursue it to make our own money, whether you're in a relationship or not. So you can always pursue what makes you happy with not worrying about our lights are on, or am I going to make it, or doing things we don't want to do to get by.
Right. And the pandemic really did do that to some extent, right? It stripped away the pressure and the constraints that we were previously operating in. And I, for one, I'm happy to be wearing sweatpants all day and being comfortable. Like, that is something I value. I love that I don't have to wear makeup all the time. But those are the things, if we can strip away those material things that we believed previously were equivalent to happiness or success, then we can strip back and really, think about what our intention is. What do we really want out of life?
I love the fact that this is actually a virtual conference, because I thought about just leaving my pajama bottoms on. And I was like, oh, this is taking me back to like COVID, when everyone was on Zoom all the time. And I'm like, bring back that. I love being in person with everyone, but we actually wouldn't be able to be here today with this diversity. And, we're all based in different places around the world. So I'm like, bring on more virtual events where I can be in my pajamas.
Right.
I do only calls on the phone. Today was my opportunity to get dressed up. I don't get dressed up anymore.
Yes.
Yeah, but see, like, we've also realigned our values, and like, what will we go for? What will we tolerate? What will we not? We wore heels. I don't think I could fit my feet into a pair of heels now.
Yeah,
I don't think I can do it now. And thank God, because I realized, I was just killing myself. Why? To look apart, to play a part,
Yes.
to fit in. And now we don't have to do that.
Yeah.
We have so many opportunities.
Right.
And that is one of the
opportunity with money now too.
That's one of the big benefits of working with women, is we don't have to do any of that, right? Because we don't care. We were like, fine, wear what you want. I don't care. I think it's great. So let's talk about collective action. So what role does collective action, such as mentorship, we talked about this today, co-ops, shared investing, play in building sustainable wealth for women? And I know we've kind of touched on it, but let's talk about what role the collective action plays.
Well, I think, just thematically, the conference is stronger together. I mean, I think that those are exactly the tools and the vehicles and the platforms that we need to come together to encourage one another, support one another. And if there are collective investments, obviously it's pooling of funds. It's the purchasing power of writing larger checks to companies and building larger funds. Mentorship, I think, is so important because we're all seeing that we've all acknowledged that women don't possess today. Not all women possess the financial literacy and also confidence to do it on their own. But going in with others can be an incredible boon. It can be rewarding. And more importantly, it creates different relationships and networks that are valuable in ways that you can't even imagine once you start. And you look back and look at the women we're on the phone today, and I'm making notes. We're going to reach out and I'm going to talk to you all because we share similar values. We sit in different parts of the world, but the energy, the collective energy when you bring women together is so powerful.
Yeah. When one of us rises, we all rise, right?
Absolutely.
I think for me personally, and I want to share this for anyone who hasn't done mentoring, is that to have someone on your side, like this is for the people watching this, because I think we've all are coaches or mentor people, but it was the first time I really felt like women had my back. And my the first program that was really successful that I sold was a woman who took no prisoners, and I meant in the best way. She was so unabashedly wealthy. She was so positive, so direct of like, you're not asking for enough. And it changed my life. It took me from starving to really going for somebody, because I didn't get that from my family. I'm like, no shade to my family, but I didn't get that message. You can do this. You can totally do this. Why are you selling yourself short? And then having women around me to celebrate is so
Yes.
When you make it, they're like, hot car, love your clothes, love what you're doing. You made sales. I still to this day have a group. It's one of the most powerful things you can do, that you can celebrate when you make a sale, when you whatever you win at. If you can send out, and like I just did a thing and they're like, woo, instead of, that's nice. Because that will come too.
Yeah.
That has come too.
But, or not saying anything, right? Not the people don't say anything,
which is just as worse.
Oh.
Yeah, mentors are like your personal board of advisors. If you when you have a really good, strong group of women who are not threatened by you, who are not judgmental of you, who are truly supportive of you and you of them, it is transformative.
And I'd just like to mention the flip side of that, because I know I sat in this vibration for a while when I was down on my luck. And you're sitting around and you're watching it on everyone on social media winning, and it can feel triggering, and you can feel jealous and you can feel envy. But I'm going to tell you why, for anyone that might be watching this and thinking, well, I don't belong in this circle, or I'm not there yet. It's because you deeply desire it. And when you desire something, it starts showing up in your realm. So I'll give an example. During COVID, I really had this burning desire to travel to Greece. And every influencer I was seeing on social media, somehow during COVID, when people weren't traveling, they were traveling to Greece. And I'm like, why? I'm like, I feel so trapped here in Canada. I can't travel. I can't do anything. They're living the life over in Greece. And it's just not fair. And I was really deeply triggered by that. And then suddenly, 6 months later, I ended up going to Greece. and it was like such an example of like, when you start seeing it, it's like when you start seeing everybody get engaged on Instagram, or everyone's having babies on Instagram, and you're like, why can't I have that? Everyone's hitting, seven figures in their business. Why can't I have that? It's the law of proximity, and it's going to draw you in. It's going to suck you up like a vacuum. Like if you're seeing that all around you, it's because the universe wants that for you too, and you deeply desire it. Just admit it to yourself. Start celebrating the women around you that are getting it, because you could be next. But doing that from an authentic place, not an inauthentic place. Like, oh, well, she told me I need to cheer, so well done, but really I'm deeply jealous. It's actually just acknowledging inside of you that, yeah, it's okay. You want that too, and you could be next.
So 10 years from now, what does true financial freedom for women look like? And what must we begin building now to make it real? 2035.
Yeah, well, it looks like starting by exiting the system today, mentally, emotionally, financially, making moves now, not waiting for the digital system to take over and then you being left behind, getting educated. But as I said, don't get stuck in the learning loop, actually take action. And what it looks like for women of the future, it actually looks like, you know, we've touched on this, but we haven't actually maybe explicitly said it, but it looks like, you know, teenage girls getting educated about investing, about crypto, about digital assets, because that's the world that we are moving into. Some of the things that are taught in school today are not going to be applicable for these girls when AI takes over a lot of those jobs. So it's getting educated on that now and starting today.
Absolutely. I actually advise a fabulous woman who is creating a platform for college-age girls who want to understand their financial, want to understand their financial outlook and understand that. So I 100% agree. There does have to be an adoption of crypto. I'm going to say too, because I'm in it also. But why is because for too long, men are ahead of the curve and they continue to build that wealth because they're more steeped into it. We have to stay up to date. So many businesses are saying, oh, the future is AI, the future is AI. And I keep on saying, well, the AI is already here. The future is here. You're
Yeah, now.
already late to the game, right? But there are these amazing, I've been looking at the AI, the stock selectors. I've been looking, so I'll talk to you later. But it's doing that. It's also continuing to fund as many women-run businesses as possible, because what we are doing with our purchasing power, because women still have a tremendous purchasing power, is we will incentivize and economize the businesses we want to see. Women, when they come up with new businesses, they're incredibly thoughtful, necessary businesses. They're not the same old, same old. They are really meeting unmet needs in society, because we do see it. So look at creating those investment circles, investing your money there, diversifying and looking ahead to the future, and continuing to feed the women who are already making an impact, because they are the ones who will continue hiring more women at better salary, who will then become leaders in and of themselves, and it's a multiplier effect.
I think that that education also needs to include our inner landscapes of self-worth and understanding what we're bringing, right? What messages, and from a very young age. And I love that I see in sports, in arts, in every sector of the world, we have more people saying, I wanted to do, more women saying, I wanted to do this. And as we have more role models, supporting those role models, like even sports teams. I like sports team. I'm in show jumping, so I am in one Olympic sport where men and women compete equally. And I forgot how rare that is. You're just on a horse. Now there's a horse involved, but that's where we're going. That's the equality that we're talking about. It's going through. You have to know it's possible. You have to know it's possible for you from a very young age.
Mm-hmm. Silke? Oh, I think you're on mute.
Oh, no sound.
Technology.
There it is. Yep. Oh no, I still can't hear her.
I can't hear her.
No, I can't hear you. I can't hear you. No, I'm sorry. We can't hear you. Okay, well, we're through our questions. Thank you so much. We're going to close with a quick closing reflection that I'm going to ask everybody, and if we could go around and just give us your opinion on this. If the world truly listened to women, what would change first?
I think if we realize that you are what you think. So, and what you think you're going to attract. So if you want to be wealthy, if you want people to treat you like you are wealthy, then you need to embody that. And that doesn't mean, sometimes when we talk about wealth and money, people think they need to have the flashy stuff, but it's actually, it's a vibration, it's a frequency that you sit on. And there's a lot of ways that you can actually do that in your everyday life to start bringing more of that into your realm. So if you desire a new car, go and test drive that new car. Walk in like you are going to buy that new car today. Touch the car, drive it. If you're building your business, I used to do this all the time when I was in Vancouver. I used to go to the most ritziest hotel and sit in the lobby. And, even if I probably couldn't afford to buy a meal there at that time when I was building my business, but I might just buy one drink and I would just sit there like I belong there. Even today, like I'm showing up like I belong here. I asked to be invited to circles like this, and I'm here because I made it happen. So, if you want people to listen to you, you need to embody it from within first.
I would have to say if I think the first thing would change would be the balance of power, because right now, as it is, at least in the United States, it's not good times, and the role of women is increasingly diminished, regardless of the amount of wealth we sit on. But I don't think anyone, and I mean the system, men, realize the amount of wealth we are sitting on. And again, that is why if we really activated understanding our role, responsibility, and the power we held in the wealth transfer, $134 trillion, if we really use that correctly, it would absolutely shift the power dynamic.
Absolutely.
I would say that the way that we look at resource, as from such a high level, in terms of things being renewable or finite, because people, we women, have been a huge resource that has been used, right? As we start to look at ourselves, we're resourceful from within, but how are we building our lives, the future, and money using resource in a different way? Because that's part of how you just walk around the game, is how do we find resources where we are that don't just put change that power differential to being exactly what it is, just patriarchy but matriarchy, right? Like, is that any better? We have exploited humanity for 500 years or more. If we really want a different society, we have to look at resource in a different way, in terms of gatekeeping, in terms of power differential, in terms of culture, in terms of the environment, and our world in general. We need a fresh outlook.
I think if you look at the number of women leaders, like world leaders, right, in the world right now, and see where their countries are, across the board, they're doing so much better. And I think that if we were to truly, if the world was truly listening to women, I think the thing that would change first is peace. I think there would definitely be more peace in the world. And without this electricity of war, in many forms, just sort of hanging over us all the time, I think so many changes could happen. And you've seen it when women leaders get put into power, the whole dynamic across the board changes, right? There are more jobs. People are let's just take Mexico, for example. They're building transportation systems. They're building cars, low cost cars for people. They're building, they gave women over 60 who never worked in their entire lives because of the way that the culture is, they gave them a sort of a retirement payment, right? They get payments every month where they never made any money whatsoever. Now, because their husbands are dead and they're old and they can't work, they get a check every month. And what does that do for the economy? What does that do for society? What does that do for their self-worth and just the entire energetic of the society and the civilization? I just think we need more of that. And one of the things that we're doing with She Is Me is really trying to speak up and speak out so that we are listened to. We're not forcing anyone, but we're making our voices heard. So trying to instill that change, trying to make that change happen. And I call it the storm surge, right? That's sort of my philosophy, is of creating these systems and creating this ecosystem with women, so that what a storm surge is, right? During a hurricane or something, the water comes in and rises, and you don't quite know when or how, and the next thing you know, you're underwater, right? So I want to call it the storm surge, and that's what we're creating, because I don't want to go out there and fight anybody about their systems and I lived it. I lived it for 40 years. I was an engineering student. I went into aerospace, and then I went into tech, and I spent 40 years in those rooms being the only woman and playing those games and fighting those systems. And I don't want to do it anymore, because we could never win. I could never win. I could never be right. I could never be best. I could never be top. I could never make the most money. There's nothing about those systems that supported me or rewarded me. So how do we create those systems? The only way is to go over here and do it ourselves, right? We talked about this. So let's get together, and everyone is listening, everyone on this call, and create that storm surge.
Yeah. It's the ripple effect, and to follow on from that, it's like you are the change that you want to see in the world. Mm-hmm. So how we take action is by making the change from us. It's the law of oneness. We are all one.
Right? Yeah. And then, with the storm surge, like once it's here, there's no going back. Like we're here. We're doing it. Mm-hmm. We don't have to play your game. We've got our own thing over here. We've got this going on, and it's working, and it's successful, and have fun.
Yep.
Does anyone have any closing thoughts?
I would just encourage everyone who's listening and viewing to take some action. If this was at all intriguing, and hopefully it is, even if you can't see yourself doing it now, take the time to learn something, one thing, take one small action, because you do have the power to be part of this change, and it could be transformative for you personally, as well as for us collectively.
Yes, I was going to say the exact same thing. Action breeds momentum, and you need to start today actually doing something.
I also wanted to say, for anyone who's watching in Australia, Holly and I will be in Melbourne in March for She Is Me Speaks event, and then in New South Wales at Moama on the Murray for a retreat in April. So join us. Holly and I will be there, and bringing some She Is Me amazingness to Australia. So thanks, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me. Silke from Bulgaria, Danielle from Bend, Samina from the Bay Area, Holly from Melbourne, Australia, and me from Seattle. And such a diverse group, such an amazing group. Thank you so much for joining me today. And that's going to close out day 1 of the conference, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Yay! Thanks, everyone. This was so much fun.
Yeah, thank you.